Today on The Nation Speaks, mass shootings. Is media coverage a contributing factor? How should we cover these killers? Tom Teves lost his son Alex 10 years ago, and he's been on a mission ever since. Then in America Q&A, we ask if you think the media should report in detail on every mass shooting. Next, Professor Greg Perreault studies news coverage of these events. He thinks no notoriety is the only way to go. Finally, in our second America Q&A, do you think the usual format for political debates works? Hello and welcome to The Nation Speaks. I'm your host, Cindy Drucker. Mass shootings often come in clusters. May this year was particularly traumatic. In Buffalo, 10 people were shot dead in a supermarket. Then a week and a half later, the unbelievable tragedy at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. 19 children killed, third and fourth graders, plus 2 teachers, and another 18 injured. In what the head of the Texas Department of Public Safety calls an abject failure in policing. Then a July 4th parade in the Chicago suburb of Highland Park was stopped cold by a rooftop gunman. He killed 7 and wounded 25. Think for a moment about these episodes and others like them. There's a good chance you can recall more about the killers than the victims. And that's a direct result of media coverage, which some people argue is part of the problem. That's what we discuss with our 2 guests today. On July 20th, 2012, 24-year-old Alex Teves and his girlfriend went to a midnight screening of Batman, The Dark Knight Rises. In the dark of the theater, Alex and 11 others were shot dead. 70 more were injured. Alex was a big superhero fan, and then he became one, shielding his girlfriend Amanda from the bullets, sacrificing his own life for hers. In the aftermath, Alex's parents came to some realizations. Putting aside complicated issues like gun control and mental health, they realized that lives could be saved just by changing how we in the media cover these events. I sat down earlier with Alex's dad. With us now is Tom Teves, Alex's father. Tom, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Tom, Alex was killed exactly 10 years ago this week, so I can't imagine it's an easy time for you and your wife Karen and the rest of the family, or frankly the whole community. I'd like to start by giving you a chance to honor your son before we jump into the wider issues. What would you like us to know about Alex?
Alex was somebody I think the world could use right now. Alex was a collaborator. Alex brought various groups together. He was very athletic and he was a wrestler. He always wore a white shirt, a white t-shirt and blue jeans to school every day when he was in high school. And when his mom asked him why, he said, because I just want to be neutral. I don't want to take any position. And the seniors in this particular school, they have what they call Pride Day, and the school would sell them shirts for, they were official high school t-shirts that everybody would wear. And the year they were going to do it, the school doubled the price. So the entire class revolted. And instead of doing that, the entire school, the 475 students in his class, decided to do it as Alex Teves Day, and everybody wore white t-shirts. So he was just a collaborator. He brought people together. And I think if you think about the way the world is today, we could use that.
Indeed, that's a really wonderful story. Thank you for sharing that. So going back 10 years to that totally horrific time, most of us fortunately have not been in your position. What was it like to experience the media coverage of that when it immediately happened?
Well, in the beginning, you're not ready to get a phone call that, your son's been murdered. We got a call from his girlfriend saying that there was a shooting and that, she couldn't get Alex to wake up and that they dragged her out of the theater. And I unfortunately knew right then he was dead because I knew who Alex was and there's no way he wouldn't have got off the floor. We were about 3,000 miles away. Unfortunately, at the time, we couldn't get anybody in the police department answer the phone, which is understandable. They were literally dragging, very hurt people to the hospital in their police cars because they were run out of ambulances. And when we turned to the news, all we saw were pictures of the murderer and his booby trapped apartment. And it became clear as we went through the 3,000-mile trek to get back to Denver, because we were literally, it was the first day of our vacation in Hawaii. It just became apparent that there was something wrong with the way the coverage was going, in that all we ever saw was pictures of the murderer. And when we got to Denver, we tried to keep a low profile, but all of a sudden stories were being made up about Alex that no one had said. So we had to at least address it. So we ended up on CNN with Anderson Cooper, and I just challenged them. And I said, can you guys go 12 seconds without saying this coward's name? Because he's not a hero, and you got to stop turning him into something he's not. He's a coward. He snuck up behind a bunch of people with an automatic rifle and started shooting them while they were watching a movie.
We're joined now by Greg Perreault, a professor of digital journalism at Appalachian State University, who has studied media coverage of mass shootings. Greg, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Greg, what is right or wrong about how the media currently covers mass shootings?
I believe we're granting far too much notoriety to mass shooters. It's an easy trap to fall into, in the sense that there's obviously some interest in sort of the salacious coverage of these individuals. However, we should be granting far more emphasis on victims and communities and rebuilding.
It seems like lately there's been a spate of mass shootings. What does the research say about the copycat phenomenon or the contagion effect?
There is some indication that, similar to mass media coverage of suicides, that there is a contagion effect, in the sense that when one shooting event happens, there tends to be a bit of an uptick in a number of shooting events that follow. We've certainly seen this in recent days.
Do you think that's because the shooter wants notoriety, or are there other things at play? For example, I know from reading about the psychology of some of these mass shooters that they want to see their own power. They feel powerless. They want to see power exercise. So maybe they want to see, the chaos and despair, destruction that they can reap. So how much of it is, wanting the notoriety, and how much is just seeing the impact of what they can do?
I think it's a bit of both. And I think that begs us in the media to reconsider how it is that we're framing these individuals, and how much coverage we grant to them, as opposed to victims and the communities that are so harmed by these events.